So this week's Parsha is Parshat Matot, and last week I was at a party and someone who was not even Jewish said something to me which really sparked my interest. So I grew up knowing that someone who's uncircumcised cannot go into the temple. And I always thought that just meant if you're not circumcised, you can't go into the temple. The same way I think someone uncircumcised can't come to the Seder. But I don't think, who can't partake in the Korban from Pesach. So this is what he said to me. He says in Tehillim, there's a verse that says, it's in chapter 84, in verse 11, it says, I would rather be in the house of the Lord as kind of a guard, rather than be in the tent of the wicked. And I never understood what's the big deal about being a guard by the temple. So what he told me, and prepare yourself because this is pretty graphic, is he said that there was actually a guard that would check the men and tell them to lift their skirts or their tunics to see if they were circumcised, which does not sound like a very exciting job. And how does that relate to this week's Parsha? So one of the biggest events in this week is the 2.5 tribes come to Moshe and they say, hey, we have a lot of cattle and sheep and we want to stay on this side of the Jordan River.
My fingers are in the middle of it.
It's okay. And is that okay? So Moshe, he screams at them, uncharacteristically of Moshe, who we think of as the paradigm of Dan L'Kavzechut and modesty, and he screams at them and he says, how dare you? Your brothers are about to go into Israel and they're going to fight and you're not going to be there with them? Doesn't make any sense. And then all of a sudden the text says that the 2.5 tribes say, no, we always intended to go, and of course we're going to go. We're going to leave our women here and the children, and we're going to come back after the war is done and we conquer Israel. So the rabbis are challenged by that story because did the 2.5 tribes really have good intention or not? Did they just say it incorrectly? Or did they actually have a bad intention to stay there? And then Moshe challenged them and they had to backpedal very quickly and pretend that they had good intention. We're not going to know because there's very many positions in our tradition that can go either way. And in the same respect, you can also ask that question, which is, well, why didn't Moshe give them the benefit of the doubt and assume that maybe they did have good intention, and he should have assumed it, and he should have just said, okay, no problem, you can stay here after we finish fighting, then you'll come back. But that's not how it went down. And so I think the connection that I thought of when I thought about the guard in the temple is that there is this notion of what we call Dan L'Kavzechut, which is to give someone the benefit of the doubt. But at the same respect, you don't always have to be that person who gives that benefit of the doubt. That maybe there's a time that you actually have to come down hard on somebody. And maybe you could say in this case of the 2.5 tribes, I read that there's this notion that they came because they felt that they were cheated out of their birthrights, because Reuven lost his birthright as the oldest son, and Gad was the oldest son of one of the maidens, and so Manasseh was the oldest son from his brother of Yosef. So maybe they had a reason to come in and ask for this separate inheritance as sort of like a reward for being a firstborn. And also Moshe could say, hey, I don't care about the merits of what you're doing. You have to think about the larger picture, which is going into Israel with your other tribes. And so, as I always say that we're trying to think how the Torah speaks to us today, this story is very powerful because we have to determine either we have to be better than the 2.5 tribes and clearly say what we mean, or at the same respect, if we're on the Moshe side of the equation, maybe we have to come down hard on somebody who's not living up to their potential. Either way, I know I definitely don't want to be the guard at the temple and hope that I'm not faced with that challenge. Have a good Shabbat.